think of the bigger picture. Don't get bogged down in the minutia and in the small individual sales. Look at the sales over the longer period of time.
Hey, my name is Felix T. I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn what was the metric that led them to 600% growth, why content marketing and SEO are still worth it even though they take longer to see results, and the emails that they sent to turn customers into repeat buyers. Today I'm joined by Danielle Vincent from Outlaw Soaps. Outlaw Soaps creates evocative scents designed to remind people of themselves at their best. It was started in 2013 and based out of Grass Valley, California. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me, Felix.
Yeah, so you started this business with your husband because you wanted a daily reminder of something. What was that, and what I guess drove you to start the business?
Sure. Well, we started the business. I was working at a desk job. I was getting to work before dawn and I was leaving after dark, and it was entertainment. So it was a desk job and I was just exhausted all the time. And on our honeymoon, we picked up this bar of handmade soap and I smelled it. And every morning I would take a shower with it. I would smell it. I would set it down. And eventually one day I looked at the package after having like a month of sniffing this soap, thinking about our wonderful honeymoon. And I realized that it was pretty simple ingredients. And so I thought, well, if this reminds me of my honeymoon, what other things do I want to be reminded of? And so we started creating scents that reminded us of our favorite things like camping and, leather, gunpowder, sagebrush and campfire and whiskey and stuff like that. So that was really the start of this whole idea.
Makes sense. So this leap between you buying this, bar soap and you recognizing that, there are other things that I would love to use as well, to you creating these, were you creating them for yourself, or would you put on this hat, like this kind of business hat right from the beginning to recognize that there's opportunity for you to start a business focusing on this?
I started looking around to see if there was other things that would meet that need for me. And after finding that, there's some candles and stuff like that, but nothing really in the personal care and how powerful scent is. And I started chatting with my friends about it and actually my coworkers. I used to work at the Oprah Winfrey Network. So I would be talking to my coworkers about how this idea, and they were so enthusiastic. As I talked to people, more and more people were like, yes, if you make that, I will buy it. And that was really the thing that kind of, I initially thought it was just going to be friends of mine, but we were featured on some pretty popular blogs very early. And so we knew we had kind of, lightning in a bottle, in a way.
Makes sense. Okay, so you were going out and telling people about this idea that you had, friends that people in your network, and they were all saying, or super excited about it, saying that they would certainly be a customer of yours. Was there any other kind of validation that you did above this, or was that enough for you to start investing your time and money into this business?
I don't know how to explain it other than that I was just 100% certain that this was something that was needed in the world. And I know that that's the common refrain of many entrepreneurs. But I didn't really have any other market validation other than just I couldn't find what it was. It didn't even occur to me that who would really want this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it just seemed like so obvious to me that everybody needed it.
Yeah, I think that's is certainly a path towards finding a product, finding a business is something that's so clear to you, which I think is about this trait of having a vision, right? That it's so clear to you that this thing should exist in the world. Why doesn't it? And as an entrepreneur that is ambitious, why not you be the one that takes it to the market? So what was that next step then? So you recognized that you wanted to create this, you want to bring it to the world. You heard from other people that were interested in it. What was the next step to create this? Because like you said, there was nothing else out there. So there was probably no roadmap to follow to create this, right?
Well, since it's a handmade soap company, that was really where we started. We started with making handmade soap. And that is a very well-documented, massive industry. There's like handmade soap conventions and there's YouTube videos. And we taught ourselves how to make soap, using YouTube videos and online, joining communities, joining Indie Business Network and the Handcrafted Soap Makers Guild and all of these things. We really just immersed ourselves, of course, in my ample spare time from my very demanding entertainment job. It was quite, a lot of late evenings and early mornings on the weekends, and a lot of people coming over saying, "How come you never come out anymore?" But we knew we wanted to do this, and so we did teach ourselves how to make handmade soap. And like I said, that's just an incredibly well documented process, and we were very lucky to have a whole roadmap out there for us.
So from the time that you started getting serious about it and looking up how to do this, how long did it take before you had a version of it that you were ready to start trying to sell?
About 3 months. Well, actually, really 2 months, because it took us 2 months to learn how to make soap, and then soap takes a month to cure. So by the time we had the batch that we wanted to sell, it was like 2 months. And we came up with the name before we even had tried to make soap. We were so convinced that this had to happen, that even if we didn't understand how to make soap right away, we knew we had the faith that we could learn to do it. So I look back and I think that was so crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you said that you're so convinced that it had to happen. That you repeated this a couple of times because I bet you're thinking to yourself like, wow, if you were kind of delirious, but in a way that led to your success. So, do you think that when you kind of look back on this, do you remember any times where? 'Cause I think there's a honeymoon phase where any entrepreneur goes through where they have an
Yeah.
idea, they're super passionate about it. Was there ever a point along the way before you started seeing this traction, this success, where you guys kind of question it? Are there, anybody on the early team like question maybe this is not the right thing to do?
Oh my gosh, for 5 years. Yeah, it's been a very, very weird road. And for 5 years, I really felt like maybe this isn't the idea that I thought it was. I mean, we'd get like super amazing traction by being featured in like a major publication or Uncrate or Cowboys and Indians magazine or on the front page of Yahoo. And then we would go dry months where we'd maybe make like $1,000 in a month. And and it was really, the whole, especially for the first year, we had almost no strangers placing an order. It was always like, "Oh, sure, I know Jenna Lee," and so it was absolutely so difficult. And there were glimmers of traction, but until the last 7 months, I would say that those glimmers of traction were glimmers, not like a shining ray of sun. And then it was only in the last 6 or 7 months that it's become really apparent that we do have something that has a lot of traction.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that in a second. So before we get there, where did the first sales come from? Once you had that product that was ready to go out for sale, where were you getting the customers to come in and check out the product to begin with?
It was all friends. It was, and I really am so grateful for our friends who supported us through all of this. It's just been pretty amazing. They all rallied together and bought us out of all of our inventory. Our first batch of soap, our most popular soap, was called Unicorn Poop. We don't have that anymore, but we did, and it sold out in 2 hours after we put it on the website. So it was pretty amazing. We only had like 30 bars though. So we started incredibly small, and it was really entirely our friends buying it.
Hmm. So when you were going through this phase where things weren't progressing as quickly as you would like, what were you guys telling? What were you telling yourself, or what were you telling each other to stick it out? Especially, 5 years is a long time where you are constantly questioning yourself. How do you answer those questions?
I think there was probably 50% just stubbornness and 50% insanity. It really was just sometimes just waking up in the morning and plodding along through it. And I actually wrote a blog post in the early days that said there's no difference between flying and falling until the end, because I was so not sure whether we were doing the right thing. And I look back on that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just pet myself on the head and say, look, it's going to be okay. And that's when I have my dark days now. I think, okay, if I was to tell myself 3 years ago what was happening today, I would not believe our good fortune. So even today's bad day is better than our good days, 3 years ago. And try to remember to tell myself now, in 3 years, today's bad day is going to be, or today's good day is going to be the worst day in 3 years. So, it's all keeping a perspective and trying to just be stubborn. Just be
Yeah.
stubborn.
So going along with that, so you said that if you were to go back, 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and you could kind of comfort yourself and say, "Hey, things are going to get better." Would you be able to point yourself to any, the day, the you today, going back to you 3 years ago? Would you be able to point yourself to any signs that you say, "Hey, look, see, here is evidence, or here are the kind of seedlings that are going to lead to more success 3 years later, or further down the road"?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people kept repeating over and over again, and I have a business coach now, and she said, how many times do people have to tell you this before you actually hear it? And the thing that they kept repeating was, I'm so glad I found you. Now that I know that you exist, I'm never using anything else. I mean, and that when you think about a stranger saying that about your product, that is like, that's really gold. And talking to those people, the thing that I really learned was that our customers will always have great advice for us. They'll just tell us what they want. And so the more we listen to our customers saying things like, now that I know you exist, I'm never using anything else, that is a real business validation, and I wish I had listened to that with my heart a little bit more in the early days. It was hard.
Yeah, I think that's certainly that's definitely important, because you're kind of talking about like celebrating these small wins that will fuel you to keep going. How do you look at it differently today? 'Cause I think it's also talking a lot about kind of gratitude, right? Just being grateful about how far you've come. Again, just even if you don't believe in the power of gratitude or anything like that, it's just to give yourself fuel, just to stick in the game, stay around longer, so you can survive the down days, down years, down months, to last for the upswings like you are in now.
Yeah.
Nowadays, how do you try to be more to take it more to heart, like these kind of small wins, especially the messages that are coming from your customers?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, the customers are really telling you what you need to do, or telling us what we needed to do. We needed to get more exposure. The key words there were, now that I've found you. They couldn't find us. Nobody could find us. And so now we really regard our problem, our business problem, as one of, people just don't know we exist to be dedicated to us forever. And that's like a really interesting problem, because it's an incredibly solvable problem. There's like unlimited numbers of ways to get exposure, including being on this podcast, including search engine optimization, Facebook ads, referral affiliate programs, that kind of things. There's so many ways to get exposure, and the problem of obscurity was really what our customers were telling us we had, was just they didn't know about us. And that's so solvable. So when I think about our problems now, and I think about what we need to solve, something that our customers say a lot now is, I wish that shipping wasn't so expensive, and I also, you're out of stock of everything I want. And these are great problems to have, but they're still problems. And so, we're working on solving those, but we've learned that our customers really tell us what direction we need to look to build the business.
That's a great point. When you first told me that feedback that your customers gave you, I didn't read between the lines either about what was
Yeah.
it that they were saying. And it's really important now that you bring that up, that it's not just kind of empty like platitudes where someone's like saying, oh, great company, great products, whatever. It's like, what are they, what are they, what's their intention behind what they're saying? Maybe not I guess directly or purposefully, what's their intention, but like, what are they feeling? What are they signaling to you by saying these things? And even though it might sound like a compliment, there are kind of opportunities in these messages that they're giving you, these almost like gaps in your business that you can, if you can fill, it takes us to the next level. So let's start talking about that. So you mentioned to us that you were going at it about like a 20%, 30% growth every year. Let's start there though, because that's not a bad place to be, right? Or maybe over a long period of time, you feel like you're not growing, but what got you to at least get to that clip of 20, 30% growth? Like what was happening? What were you doing to maintain that kind of growth?
I am incredibly aggressive with search engine optimization. It was one of the things I really worked on when I was at the Oprah Winfrey Network. And it has been a passion of mine, like a dorky, geeky passion of mine for as long as the whole concept existed. I was just obsessed with how to make algorithms decide to feature us over other people. And so the initial, like really, and still it is one of our biggest drivers of business is search engine referrals. So really blogging regularly, being really diligent about, we have a weekly newsletter. A lot of people think, oh, weekly, I don't want to spam people. It's not spam if your content's so interesting that people actually read your emails. And that's, I think, something that people forget is that if you're being interesting, you're making content. You're not advertising. And that's something that we've really been very, very delighted to do in blogs and email newsletters, is just really keep a real transparent. We call ourselves the most democratic soap company because we solicit regularly feedback from our customers and we let them know what's going on. Our newsletter this week is going to talk about how our website slipped schedule because we could not ensure that it was going to look right when we launched it. And my rule for us as a business is no artificial deadlines. I don't want to make a deadline just for the sake of having a deadline because we don't have people we're trying to impress. And so being transparent about our business decisions in terms of not making artificial deadlines and why our loyalty program is a week behind schedule and stuff like that, I think helps us really build a relationship and helps us have a really cool interaction with our customers. You know, we make a deeper relationship with them because we're so honest about our shortcomings.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk a little more about your approach to content. So first of all, you mentioned that you're very transparent about your business decisions and you're creating content around these business decisions, like business failings. And these aren't topics about soap. Like you're not talking about your products at all, right? In this kind of content pieces, right?
Many times we are. Like, for example, we had a shaving soap that we were so excited to launch. We were going to launch it right before Father's Day, like Indiana Jones sliding in under a closing, stone door. And it came off of the racks. Soap requires 30 days to cure. And it came off the racks and it just didn't smell as strong as we know our customers expect it to. So I had to write a blog post that was very, I hope it had the appropriate regret sound to it, but it just was like, look, I'm so sorry. We have been so excited to launch this shaving soap and we know you've been really excited to get it. And also it doesn't meet our quality criteria. So we're sorry, but we can't sell it to you. And that's an example of a product oriented blog post that is really about our struggle as a small business. And, that's something people were like, well, why don't you just sell it anyway? And I was like, I just don't know if I can. Like, people are buying our stuff above other people's stuff because of the scents. And if it doesn't smell the way we expect it to smell, then I don't want to release something that doesn't meet our standards, our very high standards. And, there's launch paralysis, and then there's making sure that you meet your customers' needs for quality. And I think that it's a very fine line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in that situation, there are companies out there that will either just release the product anyway or find some way to hide the failing. But you
Yeah.
are obviously very transparent about it. Can it hurt though? Do you ever think of a situation where transparency can hurt, or do you always recommend leaning heavily on the side of transparency over anything else?
I think that there's a very important distinction between sharing personal failings and questions and hesitations and going into the whole woe is me situation. There's some business owners I see, especially small business owners, they think it's all about them and their struggle. And it really isn't. It's all about the customer and it's all about the customer's experience of your business. So, for example, people were looking forward to that shaving soap. So this wasn't about our failing. This is about our customers not being able to get that and our efforts to make a higher quality product for them to meet their needs. It's really all about them. Just like the website launch, this isn't about us not having a website. This is about our customers and meeting our customers' needs. So it really is all about them and not us, even though on some level it does seem like it's about us and our business. That's something I see some small business owners forgetting, is that the most important thing is really to address what the customer cares about, and that's really all they care to read about, is what they care about. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, it does. I think like you're basically saying like you can't just be transparent for the sake of transparency if the
Right.
content is not actually useful or valuable to the most important people, which are your customers. I think that that makes sense.
Exactly.
Now, I think it sounds like you're creating a lot of content. How much are we talking about? Like how much content were you producing at the time? How much are you producing these days for the website?
Well, I ran a little experiment. I'm a big fan of data-driven decisions and experiments. And last year in at the end of July, I hadn't blogged in a while, and I decided to start blogging a couple times a week at least. And hopefully every day, but at least a couple times a week. And I watched our Google Search Console, and our Search Console numbers climbed steadily from that. July 31st was the date. I can point it out, and anybody could look at it on a graph and say, oh, wow, something changed that day. And the thing that changed was that I started blogging several times a week. So that's really, I just look at the data and I see what's causing a measurable difference in whether people are finding our site through search, whether people are finding our site through marketing referrals, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute about the Facebook ads thing, because that was really an interesting revelation. But it's all data-driven decisions and what blog posts are people responding to.
So this approach of SEO and then content marketing, like you're saying, like writing these blog posts, the results take a while, though, especially if
Yeah.
you're new, right? It takes a while to show up. And I think if you are not necessarily just impatient, but if you are just nervous, right, about whether you're succeeding, whether you're going down the right path or not, I can see someone taking a few steps down this path and all of a sudden changing paths over and over again because they haven't given enough time to see it work. How do you address that if you're someone, because obviously you have experience here, but how do you address that if you're someone that's new? How should you approach SEO and content marketing differently so that you have the right perspective when you're looking for results?
The most important thing that Google is looking for is a relevant site. And the site relevance is determined in a large part to how often the site is updated. And so when your blog post updates your homepage, Google says, oh, I should really index this site a lot more often. And as a result, your site goes up in rankings, not just for that one particular thing, but overall authority. And as your pages interlink, and that there's keywords that are linked to other sections of your site, that other keywords are linked to other sections of your site, Google creates a story about your website that's bigger than just that one page or that one blog post. And that story about your website comes with authority, and it comes with unseated, an ability to be unseated in the search results. For example, a competitive soap company to us came out with a soap that was Campfire soap. We already had dominated the search results for Campfire soap. And so because we have all these blog posts, going back for 6 years about Campfire soap and the importance of why we created Campfire soap and linking to the consistent page for Campfire soap, it's very difficult to unseat us in that first position, even though they're a bigger company with more important, more traffic and stuff, because we've just been talking about Campfire soap for 6 years, And so the consistency over that amount of time allows Google or Bing or any of the search engines really, but let's just be honest, we're talking about Google, to build a story. And so in that way, when you think about like, will this cause immediate effects? No, because the reason is because of how search engines build that story. And so you think about it in terms of writing a book, not an article. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I think it's something that I've spoken about recently too, which is around the importance of having a back catalog, because that's the only way people can become super fans and immersed into your authority. Even if you have an article that's ranking at the very top and they come to your page, you have only one article, that's not enough for someone to be like, I trust this person, because there's no other content, right? They don't have enough content for them to consume on similar topics, other topics, enough for them to, because if they get exposure to you for the first time, that's the time where they're probably going to be most interested in finding out more about what you're about. And if you don't give them the opportunity to do that by producing more content, by producing back catalogs, by linking to other content pieces that you have, they don't have the opportunity to become immersed into your kind of a world of authority. So I think that, what you're saying obviously makes a lot of sense from a search engine perspective, but then when an actual user comes to your site, actual potential customer, you want that authority too by having a lot of content. So yeah, I think
that's actually in a recent customer survey. So we're very customer focused, as I'm sure you've picked up on. In a recent customer survey, we asked people why they decided to buy Outlaw Soaps, why they felt like we were the company for them. And the first two were about our scents and how our scents are really high quality and unique. And then also they can't find us anywhere else. The third reason, which I found was very interesting, was because they liked us as a company. And that is a direct result of how much I write about our company in our blog. And that's was really cool to hear that they felt that we were a good company because of all the things that they've read about us, and that's exactly what you're talking about, is that back content catalog of, substantiating evidence that we're a solid company that they can trust is something you cannot build overnight, and it can't be done in a matter of days or weeks. It has to be done over years.
Makes sense. Yeah. So let's say people out there listening, they're bought into this idea. They're ready to write a lot of content. The next thing they might be thinking about is like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to write about. I don't have any ideas. What's your process to come up with ideas to create content for?
Well, it's pretty, so I've gone to a bunch of classes and seminars and watched a bunch of videos and stuff like that. There's a ton of videos out there about how to do stuff, but I really go to Google Trends and I think about, okay, what do I want my most popular product to be? Like, for example, solid cologne is something that right now I'm trying to really optimize. So I've been doing, going to Google Trends, seeing what people search for. Do they search for dry cologne? Do they search for solid cologne? Do they search for travel cologne? And creating, and then also going to Google, typing in solid cologne and seeing what else comes up in the recommended search. For example, I typed in solid colognes or solid cologne. One of the things that came up was solid cologne reviews. So I wrote a blog post called Best Solid Cologne Reviews, where I highlighted my favorite of our customer reviews. And that is a super easy thing to do because you don't even have to write that content. All you have to do is let the customer speak for you. And that's super great because it kills two birds with one stone. You're, highlighting stuff and you're getting great search engine optimization. And then also if you do a search, for example, for solid cologne, and you go to the very bottom of the page, you can see other recommended search terms. And the best thing to do is just grab those and create blog posts around them. I always have a running draft of a bunch of drafts in my blog on Shopify with ideas, with other search terms that I've come up with that maybe could be a good, direction to go. For example, I just posted one called solid cologne versus liquid cologne because I saw that at the bottom of those search results. And I thought, okay, I can write a blog post about that. And so I wrote a blog post about the difference between the two, what the benefits are, what the drawbacks are. And somebody posted a comment that said, this is the best post I've read in a long time. And that was a really great thing to hear. Also, I totally was not inspired to write that post. It was entirely inspired by just Google. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So again, another theme of yours is taking this kind of very data-driven approach to deciding what kind of content to create. So I think other people can do the same thing where they can come up with these ideas. I think the next potential challenge is now about publishing, right? Again, I think there's probably lots of people out there listening that might have tens of drafts of blogs that have never been
Yeah.
published. They can't get to the point where they feel like they can quote unquote finish it and hit the publish button. So do you have that challenge today? Like or in the past, like, how do you overcome this fear of finishing a blog post?
Well, I'm actually a writer. So I come to this with a bit of additional skill.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really have one of the reasons that I was very confident in starting this business is because I knew I could write my way through practically anything. And if there's one skill that I have, it's being able to be a very strong writer. So I know I used to be the editor of my school newspaper. I've written tons of posts and articles for GoDaddy. And, I love writing. And so there is one thing that I don't know if you can really learn it. If you don't like writing, you could perhaps hire somebody to do it for you. There's a ton of people out there on Upwork who will write content for you. But really just kick it out there. Make sure that your spelling is right. I heard Grammarly is a great application that helps people get their grammar to publishable quality. But just get it out there. Sometimes the shortest blog posts, it doesn't really. If you're doing it for search engine optimization, the blog post does not have to be very long. It just has to have a title and some words that substantiate the fact that that is not just a spam post. So even if you have shaving soap as your title, shaving soap is coming soon, I promise, here's a photo of it. Thanks for your support. That could be a blog post. It doesn't have to be very, very long. It just has to be content. And it just has to update your homepage, and it just has to update your blog page. And sometimes short is totally fine. It doesn't have to be very long.
Makes sense. Okay, so is this still your approach today? This kind of aggressive content creation for purposes of SEO, or is there a new path for you guys to focus on to grow the business?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest revelation for this year, which resulted in a 600% growth, which is why I wrote you in the first place, is because of Facebook ads. And I shifted my thinking around Facebook ads and advertising in general and cost per acquisition in general. I got an app on Shopify called Better Reports. And through Better Reports, I was able to pull our lifetime customer value. And I realized that our lifetime customer value was much higher than I thought it was. It was actually around $70. And I had been looking at the Facebook advertising that we'd done in the past, and I'd been seeing a cost per acquisition of $12.50 on sometimes an $8 bar of soap. And it doesn't take a mathematician to go, that doesn't work out. And so I had thought this wasn't working. But then when I looked at Better Reports and our lifetime customer value, I realized that if I was, even if I was losing money on one sale, if I was making $70 on average from every new customer I got, that Facebook was printing money for me. Like it was a broken Coinstar machine. And all I had to do was push bulldozers of money into it. And as long as I got a pretty huge return on investment, our margins could cover that initial loss for the most part. And then the lifetime customer value of our incredibly strong repeat customer rate would sustain us. And that has been absolutely a total game changer for us. Has been really the thing that I think, if I could say one thing to your Shopify Masters listeners, it is think of the bigger picture. Don't get bogged down in the minutia and in the small individual sales. Look at the sales over the longer period of time and really think about that customer in terms of a relationship that you're creating. And again, thinking back to those customers who said in those early days, wow, I now that I've found you, I didn't know that you existed. And thinking about how we can get that lifetime customer value to work for us and to build those relationships, even if it means an initial loss on that first sale.
Right. So your Facebook ads were always working. Just you didn't know that they were working because I think it's a very common fear, right, where you are not making a profit, not making money on day one, right? On day one of putting the ad up, someone coming to your site is costing you more money on day one to acquire them than you are making money on their purchase. Now you're basically saying that it's much greater than that, $70 over their lifetime. What's happening that they are coming back and just repeat purchasing from you? Just because of the product itself, or are there ways that you've set up systems to encourage repeat buyers?
Yeah, I mean, I stand by our product. Our product is, as far as I'm concerned, of course, the greatest on the market. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. So I do know that our product is so unique that if people want it, they can go nowhere else for it. Basically, we're the only place. Outlaw Soaps is the only company that makes products like we have. So we found a very powerful niche, and it's one that there just isn't a lot of competition in it. So, if you want handmade soap that smells like campfire, that is like we make, you can't get it anywhere else. So there's that. And that actually does drive a lot of repeat purchases. But the other thing is building that relationship, having a strong newsletter, creating that blog that has all that extra information. And then recently, as a result of a bunch of people, like I said, you just have to listen to people and they'll tell you. A lot of people said that they wish they knew more about our company and about what happens when they order a product. And so I got, and I thought at the time that it was probably the worst thing ever. And now in retrospect, I think, oh my gosh, that may have been the best thing ever. When MailChimp and Shopify had their great divorce, which I know affected a lot of people, we went to Klaviyo, and Klaviyo has a lot of robust email marketing flows and conditional marketing and everything. And so we started using this welcome email sequence. And this welcome email sequence, right away starts, hey, thanks, this is your first order. We're so glad to have you in the gang, et cetera, et cetera. And then the second one talks about why we started the company. And then the third one talks about the inspiration for our scents. And the fourth one talks about the people who work here and the people who make the products and how they all make above average wages for the area. And we really think it's important to ethically treat employees, so that people are happy and so that the products have happiness infused into them wherever they go. And I know that that's kind of an unconventional method of communication with a bunch of customers, but it's something we feel very strongly about. And, then we say, hopefully your product has been delivered, but in case it hasn't, here's a little bit more about our fulfillment process and stuff like that. So that when people when people place their first order, they immediately start learning more about our company. And we've received so much feedback about that email sequence, that initial email sequence, about how that's really helps people get a better understanding of us as a company. And, then other things like, for example, we started offering a solid cologne sample set because one of the common customer request was, I wish you had samples. I would be more willing to spend $25 on a tin of solid cologne if I could try it first. So we offer a sample set, and we don't make a ton of money on that sample set, but 15 days after they get their order received, they get an email that says, hey, want to place an order for a full size one? And so we're able to kind of, build on those initial purchases using this email flow. So they don't go into a black hole, they become part of our gang. And that's one of the things we really do well, I think.
Right. So you're basically, by building a relationship with the customer is what turns them into a repeat buyer for you
Yeah,
guys. Okay.
totally.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes and let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview.
You mentioned a couple of times so far about how you're not coming with these ideas in your own head. You're just trying to be a good detective and listening for what your customers are telling you. I would say, there's probably some advice that's better than others from a customer. Like, how do you filter what kind of advice to take versus what might be, not discarded necessarily, but at least deprioritized?
Well, one of the things that we really want to do is make stuff that's not like anything else out there. So if there's something that people are requesting that is like other things out there, we direct them to the other thing. We don't say, oh, no, that's not for us. We say, you might be interested in this, and in that way, we're actually acting as a friend. We just recently hired a customer satisfaction manager. And one of the things I told him was, we want to be like their friend. As soon as they interact with us, we're their good friend. And so if we have, if they need something we don't have, we will send them to a resource to get it. And so yeah, we do get a lot of advice that is, I wish you would make a menthol soap. And we say, oh, that's interesting. That already exists. Here's a link to that. And, that kind of thinking about how can we help out other small businesses, not only that, but how can we actually help people find what they're looking for and get, have a full life. What we really want to do is support them in having a full life. And so, yeah, there's ideas that people come up with that are, I don't know, some of our scents include gunpowder, and there's some people who are like, oh yeah, you should market. I don't know, Felix, if this is too, if we should exclude this from the podcast, but we do get a lot of recommendations on partnering with political organizations and stuff, and that doesn't feel right to us. We are a very diverse group of people, and we have a lot of diverse political opinions. And so we as a company have made the decision that we're not going to take any stand on politics, that we're not going to take any stand on any of the political issues that are going on right now because of how diverse our customer base is and our employee base is. So we feel like, well, we make soap and we make personal care products, and neither of these things are political. So
yeah, we'll definitely want to keep that in the pod because I think it's important for
Yeah.
people to understand that marketing shouldn't just be at the expense of nothing, right? There are costs to how far you're willing to go with your marketing. So, which is perfectly fine for people to kind of balance on them, kind of weigh and balance themselves. But like basically, what you're getting at is that there's certain values that you have, certain principles that you might have, or certain beliefs that you might have, and that you might be able to, who knows, maybe you are able to generate more revenue by going down a certain path. But if that's not in line with the mission of your company or your beliefs, then it doesn't make sense to do.
Exactly. We strive, I just want to, as one additional note on that, we strive to be incredibly inclusive. We want to use, inclusive language and inclusive practices wherever possible, not just as a business decision, but because that's who we are as a company and as individuals. And so whenever anybody asks us to make any kind of exclusive language, we try and use gender neutral language whenever we can, because we believe that even though some people consider our products male focused, I use them and I'm not a guy. So I think that using inclusive language is very important to us as a company, no matter what kind of pressure people and our customers put on us as a company. It's just, there's lines in the sand that we have to draw. So.
Got it. So okay, let's talk about the Facebook ad strategy then. So you mentioned that 600% growth, and that was just because again it was already working. You just had to give it more time for the results, the rewards to play out. So what was the strategy to begin with? How do you set up your Facebook ads today to maybe not make your money on the front end, but then clearly make your money back and much more on the back end?
Well, there were two things that shifted in the new year. One of them was that I decided to look at our lifetime customer value, as I mentioned. And then the other one is really just a stroke of good fortune. We are the luckiest company ever, I think. But somebody sent us her name is Erica. She sent us some incredible photos, product photos that she had taken with her friend. And she just kind of gave them to us. And I thought, oh, these are cool. I'm going to put these in an ad. And oh my gosh, that ad took off. It was amazing. And I just started playing with the text of the ad. And we still run those ads to this day with that same image. The image, it changed how I saw our company. It was so good. It was so evocative. It was so kind of ethereal, but also sexy and practical. It was so amazing. It's just a picture of a guy with our cologne and his chin. It isn't anything. I mean, it's not like rocket science. It was just a really dang good photo. and that shifted our business to the extent that I actually gave her equity in the company because she changed how much I thought about things. And it was the seeing how the lifetime customer value could affect my version of cost per acquisition and looking at it as a drop in a longer relationship. And then also this amazing photo that then, of course, I invested in more photography. And that has, like I say, we get better at getting better, not just we learn one lesson and then we go, oh, that lesson works. And then, we hand it off. So today, how our strategy has changed since January is that I actually hired an agency because once I realized the lifetime customer value was so powerful, I decided this is too important for me to be screwing around with this is not where I want my time to be spent. I want to spend my time thinking about bigger business strategy, whether our inventory is maintaining enough, whether we're maintaining enough inventory to meet the demand that is being caused by this advertising. And I just handed it off. I handed off, not entirely because I love working on the words because of the writer thing, but I just send a Dropbox of pictures to agency that I'm working with, Sarah Best Strategy. And she does all the rest. She does all the rest. So that's really what we changed was good photos and working with an agency.
Yeah, so let's talk about the photos because it sounds like you tried to reverse engineer, figure out why did this one work so well. What are the guidelines? What have you found? What have you discovered that others can take away from this if they are struggling with the images that they have for their Facebook ads?
I'm so shy, so I really hate taking photos and including photos of other people. And so the real groundbreaking thing was that this included a picture of a person. And that sounds so obvious and so basic in retrospect, but at the time it was absolutely like inventing the wheel. I couldn't even believe a human in a photo. What? And I look back on it and I'm like, oh gosh, how stupid can I be? But at the same time, that was a real groundbreaking thing is that people like seeing pictures of people using the products, and that has consistently performed. So whenever I have the opportunity to hire a professional photographer who works with a model, I take that opportunity. And even stock photos, I was like, maybe it doesn't even matter if we have the product in the photo. Let's test that. And so I downloaded some stock photos. The stock photos consistently performed at least as well as the other photos. So we just started using stock photos. those are so much easier and cheaper than hiring a professional photographer. So why not? And it's these kind of massive tests. The agency that I work with, she makes hundreds of copies of our ads for every single ad cycle. So that's 2 weeks. She does our ads every 2 weeks. And there's like 100 variations that she tests in terms of audience, in terms of photo, in terms of text. And she's just always testing stuff. And it's so nice to not have to have the bandwidth of testing these things. But yeah, it's people. If you include people in the photos, those do much better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So outlawsoaps.com, OUTLAWSOAPS.com is the website. And I'll leave you this last question. What do you think will be your biggest challenge this year?
Easy. That's an easy question. Scale. How do we create enough products to meet the demands? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. So I hope to hear that in a future episode.
Yeah, well, once you figure it out, we'll definitely have you back on. Thank you so much for coming on, Danielle, and sharing your experience.
Thanks, Felix. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.